And we are back on Big Board Sports 1032. Rodger Wyland with you. A book that is a definite must-read is A Bitter Cup of Coffee, and how Major League Baseball and the Players Association threw 874 retirees a curve, published by Word Association Publishers back in April. And from by all accounts, this has been a home run ball. Douglas J. Gladstone joins us. He is the author of this book, the writer of this book, and he joins us on the Sports Grill Hotline. Douglas, Rodger Wyland in Albany, good morning to you.
Rodger, good morning to you and your listeners. Thank you very much for having me on the program. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show and talk about the book.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you on, and it sounds like this book has been well received. Am I right?
I've been very, very fortunate. The Midwest Book Review, in their official review, said it was a touching and topical story made more relevant by this country's lingering healthcare debate in America. It's been called everything but by a number of journalists in your profession. It's been called a chilly narrative. It's been called an eye-opener, an important read. And I'm just happy to, in some small way, get the message out there about what's happened to these ball players.
Douglas, let's start with our listeners. What was the initial intent of this book? What was the message that you were trying to get across here?
Well, I saw what I at least perceive to be a blatant inequity, and that is, for the benefit of your listeners, ever since 1980, the current crop of ball players have only needed one day to qualify for health benefits and medical insurance, and 43 games, basically one quarter of a season, for a retirement annuity. Unfortunately, when this change was made back in May of 1980, Rodger, they never, and when I say they, the league nor the Players Union, never saw fit to retroactively amend the vesting requirement. So a lot of men, a lot of famous ball players have fallen through the cracks. People such as, I'm sure for your listeners, if they remember David Claude, the flamethrower from the Texas Rangers and Cleveland Indians, he would have been his generation's Steven Strasburg, the guy who gave up the home run in Game 6 of the 1975 World Series, Pat Darcy. And from my perspective, I first learned about this from Jimmy Qualls, and Jimmy Qualls, to any fan of the New York Mets, is the gentleman who broke up Tom Seaver's bid for a perfect game on July 9th, 1969.
It's interesting that prior to 1980, that was never taken care of. I mean, is it ever going to be rectified, Douglas?
Is it ever going to be rectified? I'm hopeful. The league and the union had a meeting in October 2009. It'll be almost a year this Friday, in which they, and when I say they, Rob Manfred, the vice president of labor relations for the league, Michael Weiner, the executive director of the Players Union, and members of the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association sat down for the first time. And what I'm hearing is that they will probably offer all these men life annuities, which is similar to what they offered to the veterans of the Negro Leagues and to the veterans who played prior to the establishment of the Players Pension Fund in 1947. But they can also do a little bit better. And believe me, Rodger, I'm not poo-pooing any payments of $6,000 to $9,000 a year, which is what someone whose service credit of about 2 to 3 years would be rewarded with. But you could actually retroactively amend these men back into pension coverage, and instead of $6,000 to $9,000 a year, which again is it's not chump change. I certainly wouldn't thumb my nose at that kind of money, nor would a lot of people in America today. But if you're retroactively amending these men back into coverage, the average pension in 2006 was $30,000. These ball players are in for a nice payday of about $900,000.
Do you think we'll get to that? I mean, do you think this book, obviously what you wrote about here is hitting home. Does it sound like this book could be the reason that this gets done eventually?
Oh, Rodger, I would never presume. I'm not trying to be immodest here. I would never presume that my book is the catalyst that is forcing MLB and the Players Union to do the right thing. Because strictly speaking, and I want to make this abundantly clear for you and your listeners, Major League Baseball and the union legally don't have to take care of these men. As most of your listeners and you probably know, when you are a retiree from any union, not just the players' union, you are not due what is called the duty of fair representation, i.e., they don't have to take care of your legal bills. So legally, they don't have to do anything for these 874, now 872 men. 2 men died since the release of my book back in April. But morally, Rodger, I think their position is indefensible. These were some of the players who paved the path so that the A-Rods of the world can command $27.5 million, or Ryan Howard can command $25 million a year for 5 years, or Matt Holliday can get a $120 million 7-year contract. And by the way, props to those guys. They're talented athletes. They really are. They deserve what the market will bear. But have a little respect for the guys, the lunch bucket players like the Steve Grillis of the world, like the David Clydes, like the Gary Neibauers, or Ken Wright, or Bill Burbeck, formerly of the New York Yankees. Have respect for those men who really, their first professional contract was $16,000, $17,000 a year.
How many players would we be talking about?
We're talking about 872 now, as I just recently indicated. Since the book was published, Rodger, 2 men have died. Okay. Jay Schlater, who used to play for the Houston Astros, and the legendary voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Nellie King. Both of those men are no longer with us, and both of them died without annuity benefits. And both of those men, went to their grave feeling that MLB has turned their back on them.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more. And we're talking with Douglas J. Gladstone, and the book is out and can be purchased anywhere, right, Doug? I mean, it's out and about.
You can purchase it anywhere. The easiest thing to do, Rodger, if you'd like, tell your listeners to call 1-800-827-7903. That's 1-800-827-7903. That's a toll-free number directly to my publisher. And
the name of the book is A Bitter Cup of Coffee, and it's how, again, MLB and the Players Association through 874 retirees a curve, and it's really a great read. And I agree. I mean, I think the guys prior to 1980 deserve a little something because you're right. They paved the way. They paved the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get on my stump speech here, but they